So for those that have been following along, I spent 2 months over in Europe shooting every day with the Leica Q3. I then went over to Japan and shot every day for a week, a bit over a week. And I have figured out what I think, personally, are the best Leica Q3 settings for street photography, including what I like to call super stealth. It might be groundbreaking to some, it might be common knowledge to others, but I thought it was pretty cool when I figured it out. So I'll show you through exactly what I do. It's all pretty simple, but it gets pretty good results. So I've got a bunch more Europe and a bunch more Japan to edit and put up, but if you haven't seen any, go back and watch the other ones, and yeah, let me know what you think. Basically, this is going to be a really quick and easy one. But the TLDR of the whole thing is that I shoot auto aperture, I dial in my shutter speed, I then use the picture profile Vivid, and then it's AFC, multi-field, highlight weighted, auto white balance, medium DNG raw files, and continuous 7 frames per second photos. And I started out shooting about 1/25th on the shutter speed because, yeah, coming from film, everything was quite new to me, but I've realized with digital you can really crank up the shutter speed, really freeze everything in place, and it just means you can be a lot quicker doing the old Winogrand, shaking it around, bang on each step, bang bang, freeze. Like it's a really handy setting. And the autofocus, which again, I've mentioned in previous things, people talk shit on, but I think it's really quick and I've been getting some great results. So that's basically it. But on top of that, I do have what I like to call super stealth, which isn't anything crazy by any means, but it makes me feel a bit more invisible while I'm out there. And it's literally just where you can turn everything off except the EVF. So I've got it as a setting, which I scroll over to. It's on the very far right. And then as I'm shooting, I know that the rear LCD panel isn't going to be constantly blasting out every image that I'm taking to anyone that, you know, maybe I've walked past, hit something, someone turns around, they're like, what's going on? And then they see that it's just a blank screen. But on the inside, on the EVF, so the EVF's still on, but yeah, the rear screen isn't. So that's my super stealth, and those are basically my settings in a nutshell. And with that setting on the EVF, like I can see from here and like turn it back to the full rear LCD mode, but it's just a cool thing to have. Then in terms of the user profiles, so I've got spot, and then I've got phase, and then I've got spot with an ISO number, and then I've got a phase with an ISO number. Like in my Paris video, when I want to get everything in focus and there's something in the foreground, but I want everything in the background crisp as well, I'll quickly slip over from phase focus to spot, and instead of just focusing on the thing in the foreground, I can set the focus point in the distance, so it's like to infinity, and it's just a quick setting. But 95% of the time I'm using phase detect, and then if I need it, I'll flick back over to spot. But that is essentially it. Don't overcomplicate it, and then you can just be pretty free with what you're doing. Fast shutter speed, auto aperture. If you're shooting on a nice bright day, it's going to get the majority of the scene in focus. If you've got a specific scene that you're working on, quickly flick it over to spot, put the spot in the distance, and make sure you can focus to infinity. But yeah, I really don't think you need too much more than that. Let the camera do the work and let your brain and your eyes do the seeing. And yeah, see what happens. And again, enormous file sizes. So if you do crop a bit awkwardly, you can be saved by that as well. So it's amazing how quickly you pick up a whole lot of bad habits with this camera, which is probably something that Leica would never say, but coming from shooting film and from always getting low res, cheap scans, you've really got to concentrate and you've really got to stop, compose, take the photo, make sure everything's perfect. Where this, I started out that way, really caring and like shooting. I was still sort of shooting as if I was shooting film. So again, I was on like a set ISO. I was on a really slow shutter speed, and I just wasn't using the camera to its full capabilities. So once I sort of got over that, and then I just sort of embraced all the bad habits that continuous 7 frames per second, phase detect, high shutter speed, all of these things allow you to be a bit less precious about what you're shooting and how you're shooting, and lets you focus on actually just being part of the street and part of the scene and disappearing into that. So that's why I love this camera. But yeah, 100% coming from that background, I felt really bad, especially in the first few weeks, of just how sort of lazy I was getting. But the results are there. So why work hard when you can work smart? That is the motto of my life, basically. And the Q3, look at that. That's a cool way to, don't know if anyone has mentioned holding the camera like that. But who needs a hand grip when you've got, who needs a wrist strap when you've got the old necktie finger grip? Anyway, that's me rambling. I've got more Europe and more Japan videos coming, but this I figured was a good one because I'm getting the question a lot. And to save everyone asking me, check out this video. Leica Q3, best settings for street, including super stealth mode.